Behind every police car that ever wore a blue lamp and a bell, there was a real officer, sitting behind the wheel, trusting that machine with their safety and, sometimes, their life. Most of the time, British forces chose well. Wolseleys, Rovers and Jaguars became genuinely beloved parts of policing history, remembered fondly by the men and women who drove them for decades. But not every choice worked out. Some cars looked perfect on paper, backed by good engines and confident sales pitches from British manufacturers, and then fell apart, quite literally, once they hit real duty. Long shifts, high mileage, and the unforgiving demands of pursuit driving had a way of exposing exactly what a car was really made of. Today we're looking at 5 British police cars that officers came to genuinely dislike, or, in some cases, actively dread getting behind the wheel of. These aren't rumours or invented stories. Each of these accounts comes from documented police history, from the officers and force archives who lived through it. Stay with us, because the car at number 1 didn't even last long enough to become a proper part of the fleet. Number 5. Rover SD1. The Rover SD1 arrived in 1976 to genuine excitement. Its dramatic, almost Ferrari-inspired styling made it look like nothing else on British roads, and several forces, keen for a fast, modern traffic car, brought it into service with real enthusiasm. Officers driving early SD1s often described turning heads wherever they went, a police car that photographed like something from a showroom brochure. The trouble was what sat underneath that striking bodywork. Force archives from the era described the SD1 as fine for motorway patrol work, spacious with a genuinely useful boot for equipment, but note plainly that it lacked a bit on the reliability side. Electrical faults, panel fit issues, and general build quality problems that plagued British Leyland civilian models in the mid-1970s made their way into police service just as readily as anywhere else. For officers, this meant a car that looked every inch the part on a motorway shoulder, with its lights flashing, but that couldn't always be relied upon to start reliably on a cold morning shift, or hold together through the sustained high mileage that traffic duty demanded. It's a familiar story from this era of British manufacturing, style arriving well ahead of substance. Number 4. Rover P6. If the SD1 struggled with reliability, its predecessor, the Rover P6, earned a very different kind of frustration from the officers who drove it. Introduced to police fleets through the late 1960s and into the 1970s, the P6 3500 V8 was, by most accounts, genuinely loved for how it drove. Fast, well-balanced, comfortable enough for a full shift behind the wheel. But 2 very specific, well-documented practical problems made life difficult for the traffic officers who relied on it daily. First, the boot was small, and once loaded with radio equipment, warning signs, and everything else a traffic car needed to carry, there was often no room left for a spare wheel. Officers who suffered a puncture on a motorway shoulder had no choice but to radio back to base and wait for someone to bring one out to them. Hardly ideal when the whole point of the car was rapid response. Second, and perhaps more alarming, standard wheel trims fitted to the P6 were found to cut into tyre valves under the kind of heavy braking and hard cornering that pursuit driving regularly demanded. Forces had to specify revised trims specifically to stop this from happening on their own fleet vehicles. A small but telling detail about just how differently a car behaves under genuine police use compared to an ordinary road test. Number 3. Triumph 2.5 PI. The Triumph 2.5 PI arrived with real promise for area car duty. A 6-cylinder saloon with genuine performance thanks to its Lucas mechanical fuel injection system, at a time when fuel injection itself still felt like cutting-edge technology on a British saloon. On paper, it was exactly what area car crews needed. Fast enough to respond quickly across a wide patrol area, with enough presence to feel authoritative on arrival. In practice, that fuel injection system became the car's Achilles heel. Former police drivers who owned examples later in life have described the Triumph 2.5 PI plainly as unreliable, with injectors and injection pump components that seem to fail with frustrating regularity. One collector who kept several ex-police examples in his own private fleet put it simply: his cars were always going wrong, echoing exactly what serving officers had experienced decades earlier. For crews depending on the car to actually be running and ready at the start of every shift, this wasn't a minor inconvenience. It meant additional workshop time, unpredictable availability, and a nagging sense that a mechanically simpler, more conventional car might have served the same purpose with considerably less drama. Number 2. Jaguar S-Type. Few cars carried quite as much glamour into British policing as the Jaguar S-Type. Used prominently by the Metropolitan Police through the 1960s for both patrol and pursuit work, it became genuinely iconic, immortalized on television screens in shows depicting the era's police work, a symbol of speed and authority on Britain's roads. Underneath that reputation, however, lay a car that force accounts from the period describe as having dreadful running costs and reliability. Maintaining a fleet of Jaguar saloons at the pace police duty demanded proved considerably more expensive and considerably less dependable than forces had anticipated when they first placed their orders. Workshop time, parts costs, and unplanned downtime all added up in ways that eventually became impossible to ignore. By the early 1970s, the writing was on the wall. Forces began quietly moving away from the S-Type, replacing it with the Rover 3500 and, notably, the same Triumph 2.5 PI that had its own well-documented troubles. It's a genuinely telling detail that police forces of the era were choosing between two cars each carrying real reliability concerns, simply because neither British alternative offered a clean, dependable option at the time. Number 1. Vauxhall Victor Ventora. And here it is, a car so poorly suited to police duty that one force's own account of it uses the phrase brief and unsuccessful excursion without any softening. In the early 1970s, Hertfordshire Constabulary equipped their traffic division with Vauxhall Victors, fitted with the larger 3.3-litre Ventura engine, hoping for a capable, fast alternative for motorway work. It didn't last. According to the force's own historical record, the experiment was short-lived enough that officers barely had time to grow accustomed to the car before it was withdrawn from traffic duty entirely, replaced by the Rover P6, the very car we discussed at number 4, itself far from perfect, but evidently a considerable improvement over what it replaced. The specific details of exactly what went wrong haven't survived in full in the public record, but the force's own choice of words tells its own story. When an internal police history describes a vehicle in these terms, unsuccessful, brief, quickly replaced, it's about as clear an admission of failure as any official account is ever likely to give. Whatever the Ventura's shortcomings were on paper, they became undeniable the moment real officers had to rely on it, shift after shift, out on the road. Looking back across these 5 cars, a clearer picture of British police motoring history comes into focus. Behind every gleaming, well-remembered classic patrol car, there were also genuine mechanical headaches. Cars chosen with good intentions that simply couldn't keep pace with the unforgiving demands of daily police work. It's worth remembering that these weren't ordinary road tests conducted over a pleasant afternoon. Police vehicles were driven hard for long hours in all weather by officers who needed absolute confidence that their car would start, run, and perform exactly when it mattered most. When a car couldn't deliver that consistently, no amount of style, speed, or manufacturer reputation could make up for it. If you remember any of these cars from your own family's stories, or if a relative once served and drove one of these on duty, we'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this look at the less glamorous side of British police motoring history, like this video and subscribe. We'll be bringing you more stories from the roads of Britain's past very soon.